Thank you. It really is a joy and an honor to be here tonight to do a hopefully fun-filled workshop on all the fun things we run into in parenting: mealtime, bedtime, chores, and getting your kid out of the local jail. I'll try to touch briefly on all of those. The title of tonight's workshop is Winning at Parenting Without Beating Your Kids. And I'm not just talking about corporal punishment, although we could address that a bit. I always marvel when I see a parent of a 5-year-old going, "Don't you ever hit your brother anymore." Because what it says is if you're bigger, you can hit. Or find somebody smaller, which is exactly what the kid has done. A younger brother, a younger sister, the cat, the dog, or whatever. But what I'm talking more about is the power struggles you and I as parents get into with our children. And the power struggles that we indeed lose. I learned a long time ago that you can't control anyone who is bigger than you or has a bigger mouth. And that can occur quite literally at any age. Just ask a parent of a 5-year-old and they'll let you in on that. But years ago, long before I had my own children, when I started teaching, I thought my job in the classroom included making kids mind. And I had a 5-and-a-half-year-old teach me differently. He would not sit in his seat, so I tried all the be nice things that you're taught in your methods courses. You know, Jeffy, please sit. Jeffy, look how nicely Susie's sitting. Jeffy, I'll give you 5 stars if you sit. Jeffy, the principal's coming in, please sit. Nothing worked. So I tried the more direct approach, sit. The kid looked at me and he said, "Make me." 5-and-a-half. So I walked over that kid and I sat him down. He leaped up. Walked back over the kid and did something I would never do today. I sat on him. I said, "There, now you're sitting." And he looked at me and he said, "As soon as you get up, I'm getting up too." And what he taught me was you cannot make any kid do something they choose not to do. But what you can do is make it more comfortable for them to choose an appropriate activity, a whole lot less comfortable for them to choose an inappropriate activity. Allow them the choice. But more importantly than allowing our children choices, we need to allow them to experience the consequences for the choices they made. Unless, of course, those consequences are life-threatening or morally threatening. I mean, you do have to intervene if it's life-threatening. You can't line your toddlers up and say, "Now, if you run out in the street, you're going to get hit. Johnny, go show them." See, I told you what had happened if you ran out in the street. No, you get in trouble for that. But most decisions we give our kids are not life-threatening or morally threatening. We do another interesting thing to kids. We say we want them to be responsible, caring, loving individuals who know how to think, not just what to think. But from the time they're this big, we say to them, "Think for yourself, think for yourself." Kid, would you listen to me? Think for yourself. Don't forget your coat and mittens. Think for yourself. Don't you have an exam you're supposed to be studying for? Think for yourself. If you'd have put your shoes in one place, we wouldn't be looking for them now. How many times do I have to tell you to think for yourself? And kids spend the first 2 years of their adult life trying to get their heads on straight. Because what we have done is taught them what to think, not how to think. And it is critical today that we teach this next generation how to think. In fact, there are 3 things we must give them to buffer them from sexual promiscuity, drug abuse, and suicide. Now, those are the 3 big concerns for all of us who are now raising adolescents. But the buffering doesn't start at adolescence. It must start much younger. And the 3 things I believe we must give each one of our children is 1, I like myself. 2, I can think for myself. And 3, there is no problem so great it can't be solved. Well, folks, they'll never get those last 2. I can think for myself, and there is no problem so great it can't be solved. Unless from the time our kids are quite young, we give them the opportunity to solve some of their own problems. So one of the first things I would ask you as parents to do is to look at what responsibilities and decisions are yours and what ones do you let your kids make. Now, we do an interesting thing here. Parents of 5-year-olds will have a list this long of all the things they'll let those little kids do. Get the kid in junior high or middle school, we reduce the list rather than increase it. When our goal should be, from the day we start letting them take responsibilities and make decisions until they leave our homes, we have a plan there to constantly increase responsibilities and decision-making skills so that when they do leave our homes, they're making most of their own decisions and truly responsible for all of their own behavior. But we have to make that happen. Let me get a handle on the group here. How many of you have infants through toddlers? Kindergarten through grade 3, 4, 5, 6. Junior high, middle school, better known as UN. You know, unable to be an adult, unable to be a kid, and wanting to be both, right? High school, beyond. High school is where I've done my most work. Junior high is my favorite group. Lunch duty is my favorite duty, so that ought to attest to my sanity or lack of. But I must say my lectures changed dramatically both in the teaching field and the parenting field after I had my own kids. It is amazing the kind of credibility they force on one's life. We have a 14-year-old daughter, Anna, a 12-year-old daughter, Maria, and an 11-year-old son, Joseph. And they've taught me a whole lot about parenting. In fact, somebody once told me that parenting is the one profession that when you finally get good at it, you're unemployed, and I believe that. I am not a perfect parent. I say to my kids, you're so lucky you don't have a perfect mother. One day my oldest said, you're so lucky you don't have perfect kids either. It's a whole lot easier that way. And if you think it's rather difficult being a parent, try being a parent, lecturing on it, and having your children attend the lectures and hold you accountable. My oldest has been known to say publicly, how come you don't always do what you tell other people to do? My youngest went to a conference with me. I did a keynote address, got in the elevator with a few teachers, and my son looked up at these teachers and said, do you want me to be good or bad? I said, Joseph. He said, well, they want to see what you're going to do either way, right? I am not a perfect parent, but I do let my kids make lots of decisions. They don't get to make them all any more than you're going to turn your home over to a 5-year-old. Now, when Joey was young, I did not say to him, do you want to go to bed or not? That was not a decision he was going to make when he was 3 years old at our house. But I did say, do you want to go to bed now with your red pajamas or now with your blue pajamas? I mean, that's a decision a 3-year-old can make. And he shows up, red bottoms, blue top, right? It is not life-threatening. It is irritating, but it's not life-threatening. So you let it go. He's getting ready for preschool. We say, here's 3 outfits, pick one. A preschooler can choose from that. But when they get older, we don't say, here's 3 outfits, pick one. We increase responsibilities and decision-making. Maria, here's your school clothes, here's your play clothes, pick something from your school clothes. And regularly, Maria shows up with the layered look. Now, it is all school clothes, definitely layered. Gymnastics day, green tights, green leotards, red knickers, white socks that go halfway between the knicker line and the ankle so the green tight sticks out, high-top shoes, no laces. I have no idea if or how they stay on her feet all day. Oversized shirt, bigger is better. Red, green, yellow, and blue stripe. Green, of course, not matching the green in the leotard. Half sleeves so the leotard sticks out. I mean, the kid looks great. Now, I know a lot of parents who would say, go pick out an outfit. Oh, you can't wear that one. Now, it is not life-threatening to kid. It is painful to parent. But it is not life-threatening to kid to wear the layered look. You let them go. It's like kids with shoes on the wrong feet. If they hurt, they'd move them. But we worry, worry, worry. You know, I have yet to see a senior with shoes on the wrong feet. But we sure spend an awful lot of their early childhood worrying about it. No, you let them go. My 14-year-old's been picking since she was 2.5. We don't say, here's 3 outfits, pick one, here's your school clothes, here's your play clothes. She has been through all that. We just assume by her age she's going to go pick out an outfit that's appropriate. Junior high, though, we tend to start over. Here's 3 outfits, pick one. Those poor kids. I don't know how many junior high parents have come up to me and said, would you look at this kid? He was such a good kid. He was so well behaved, so well mannered, so well dressed. Now look at him. And I look at the kid and I get to know the parents. I say, you know what? He hadn't changed. They go, what? He hadn't changed. From the time he was little, he dressed the way you told him to dress. He acted the way you told him to act. He said the things you told him to say. He's been listening to somebody else tell him what to do. He's been doing it. He hasn't changed. He's still listening to somebody else tell him what to do. Problem is, it isn't you anymore. It's his peers. The kid hasn't learned how to think. Are any of you raising a strong-willed child right now in your lives? You say, that's why I'm here, right? Let me tell you something neat about a strong-willed child you may not fully appreciate yet if they're young. They are truly much easier on parents when the kid is in the older teen years than a compliant child is. But if you think about it, it makes sense. You see, compliant children are very easily led when they're little for 2 things: approval and to please adults. They are just as easily led in the teen years for those same 2 things: approval and to please their peers. Now, strong-willed children, if you can get them up to puberty and still be excited about life, are never easily led by anybody. First by you, but you know what? Also not by their peers. So I want you to go home and give that kid a great big hug and say, I knew there was a reason we were getting you up to puberty. You see, we want kids who know how to think, not just what to think. So take a critical look at what responsibilities and decisions you truly give your children at home. And are you increasing it as they get older or decreasing it? I got in a lot of trouble in school. I went from secondary teaching to elementary crisis teaching. I was in crisis. I had parents on my case regularly because I refused to tell upper elementary kids in Colorado to put their coat and mittens on. And I would say to them, why do you wear your coat and mittens? And they'd raise their hand, because your mother said so. I said, no, no, no. And it says, well, because you'll catch pneumonia. I said, that's not true, and it is not true. Don't lie to kids when you're teaching them how to think. Those of you who are school teachers, I'll bet you've seen kids who never bundle up, who much to your dismay are never absent. They are in school every single day. They never get the flu, they never get the chicken pox, they're there. Then there's other kids whose parents wrap them up, bundle them up, warm the car up, drive them directly to school, send a note, don't let them go out, it's too cold. They have pneumonia half the winter. That's not why you wear your coat and mittens. Instead, I teach them why. I hold up a hunk of frozen meat. I say, kids, look at this meat, it doesn't move, does it? It's kind of cold, isn't it? Now, feel your bodies, they're kind of warm, aren't they? Feel the heart, it's moving, isn't it? Now, you've gone outside with your coat all buttoned up, all the warm air stays in, and there's a good chance your heart will keep moving. But you go on out with it wide open, or worse yet, no coat at all. There is a possibility. All the warm air will go out, the cold air could come in, and your organs could freeze. Heart, kidney, liver, solid, just like this hunk of meat. And the kids are going, ah! But do you know what? You have not lied to the kid. That's why you wear your coat. I say, but don't worry about it. Your body takes care of itself. It draws from the parts it can live without. Your hands will go first. And I show them white dots and black fingers and no fingers from frostbite, and the kids are going, ooh. I say, but that's why you wear mittens. Most kids leaving my classroom were making a decision on a regular basis not to let their organs freeze. Now, we can laugh about that. You want to see how ingrained that is in our culture? I'll bet some of you, the last time you went home to visit your own parents, now that you're a responsible adult, you're walking out the door and your mom says, don't forget to bundle up. I mean, you're 30 years old, don't forget to bundle up. Or you're walking out the door with your own children because now you are not only a responsible adult, you are a responsible parent. And your dad says, do you think you have that kid bundled enough? Think for yourself, but the underlying message is you really ought to listen to me. But all I can do with you in 2 hours tonight is irritate you. But that's exactly what my goal is to irritate you. But I'd like to do it like an oyster does it. When it gets a grain of sand in its shell, it does one of two things. It makes a pearl or it dies. Hopefully you choose the former, but the choice is yours. I mean, I get real upset with parents that attend these kind of workshops. They go back and change everything, and the kids say, what'd she go to this week? You know, because everything changes. I don't want you to do that. But what I would like you to do tonight is just irritate, and don't poke your spouse too hard tonight, but irritate about things that are going on in your homes that get in the way of helping your children become responsible, caring, loving individuals who know how to think, not just what to think. And one of the first things I'd like you to irritate about is the number of times you hear yourself saying, think for yourself, but the underlying message is, you really ought to listen to me. The next thing I'd like you to irritate about is the mini lecture. Now, you all know what a mini lecture is. That's information the kid already had. Got a kid outside, doesn't have his coat on. He is not freezing. That's life-threatening. You'd have to intervene. But he's very cold. Now, I could walk out there and mini lecture him. If you'd put your coat on, you wouldn't be cold. He knows that. I want you to irritate from now on anytime you give any kid a mini lecture. If you'd put your coat on, you wouldn't be cold. If you hadn't hit your brother, you wouldn't be up in your room. If you'd eaten everything on your plate, you could have had dessert. If you'd have studied, you wouldn't have failed. But it's like my husband saying to me, if you hadn't put the car in reverse, Barb, we'd have 2 cars. You know, I don't need that information as I'm getting on the city bus. Any more than a kid needs to hear, if you'd have put your coat on, you wouldn't be cold. Instead, I walk out there and say, hey, Joe, what's the matter? He says, I'm freezing. I said, well, how are you going to handle that? He said, I want my coat. I said, good thinking. The kid decides how to solve a problem he's created. You know as well as I do, you get a kid locked in a power struggle, you even suggest he put his coat on, he would freeze first rather than let you be right, especially if he's 13. He's not going to let you win that one. No, kid, you can handle it. So take a critical look at what responsibilities and decisions are yours and what ones are your children's. And are you increasing it, not decreasing it? The next thing I'd like you to look at is where are you coming from philosophically as a parent? One of the mistakes I think we make as parents is we read all the books, and if it's in a book, it's got to be right. And if an expert from afar, that's anybody over 100 kilometers, so I definitely qualify here, comes in and says it'll work, then it'll work. Wrong. I think we have to take anybody else's techniques, and tonight you have to take mine. Bounce them off our own philosophical tenets. And if it won't bounce, I don't care who said it or what kind of research is behind it, don't do it. I have 2 basic tenets that I'll bounce anybody's techniques off of. 1, kids are worth it. And I believe you must believe that too, because I know you're not in parenting for the money. Somebody forgot to tell you something. The second tenet is, I will not treat a child in a way I myself would not want to be treated. If I wouldn't want it done to me, then I have no business doing it to a kid. So I'd like you to examine, where are you coming from philosophically? That kids truly are worth it? And are you going to treat them in a way you yourself would not want to be treated? After you've done that, I'd like you to look at, what is your goal as a parent? Is it to empower and influence this next generation, or control them and make them mind? Now, we often say, because it sounds good, that our goal as a parent is to empower and influence this next generation, but our techniques belie that and very forcefully demonstrate that what we're out to do is control kids and make them mind. Now, the bummer about controlling kids and making them mind is you lose it once they get bigger than you. In fact, you and I are going to be in serious trouble if we make a major attempt to control this next generation. We're going to be in trouble when we end up in the old folks' home. And this next generation has learned, because we spent years teaching them how to control those weaker than them. And at that point, those weaker than them will be us. See, I won't do to a kid at 7 something I don't want done back at me at 70. Think about it. People often say to me, don't you believe in behavior mod? You bet I do. I was trained in 6-cycle charting with rats at the university. I believe in it. We modify and influence one another's behavior all the time. You all got up and walked out of here. You would influence my behavior. What we should not be in the business of doing, though, is manipulating our children's behavior. No one likes to be manipulated. Our job instead, I believe, is to empower and influence this next generation. But power is like a candle with a huge flame. Your flame as a parent can light up every child you come in contact with, including the neighbor's child, and never be diminished itself. The beauty of empowering another human being is you never lose your own power. Instead, all we have is a greater light to see by. In an old age, when our light starts to flicker, and it will, we'll have this next generation's light to guide us then. And we better hope it's a lot brighter than ours with all we're leaving them with. So we need to look at responsibilities and decisions, where are we coming from philosophically, and what is our goal as a parent. The next thing I think we need to look at is, what kind of structure do we have in our homes? Now, we have 3 models you get to choose from: brick wall, jellyfish, backbone. Now, when I first started teaching, I used the brick wall approach. I mean, I was a nervous wreck. I had no gray hairs to lend any credibility to anything. It's not an issue anymore. These are all mine. Somebody asked me once who did it, and I said, God. And I said, and she did an awfully good job. I mean, what else can you say, right? But I was a nervous wreck and very young, and I rolled out the litany. Thou shalt not, don't you dare, you better not, no hitting, kicking, biting, pinching, poking, shoving, pulling chairs over, chewing gum. The whole 9 yards, I thought. Till a 9th grader spit in another kid's face, said, it's not on your list. So I had to change my rules. Besides, in brick wall schools and brick wall homes, we teach kids what to think, not how to think. And it doesn't help them during the 3rd age of rebellion, which we'll get into later, in the teen years, when they're adolescents trying to say, I can be me, apart from this entire older generation. We don't want a rigid brick wall, thou shalt not, don't you dare, you better not. The opposite extreme is a jellyfish model, of which we have 2 kinds of families there. One, anything goes. Kids, we have 2 rules around here: just be kind and thoughtful. Kids know nothing else except they're supposed to be kind and thoughtful. There's no structure around mealtime, around bedtime. There's no structure for limits of what they can watch on TV, the kinds of activities they can participate in. We don't celebrate with them. We just say, well, whatever they want to do is okay with me. The other kind of jellyfish family is one we're seeing a lot more of today and ought to be frightened of, and that's our latchkey kids who have a key around the neck, open the door, find a note, fix your own dinner, I'll be home at midnight. There's absolutely nobody around to give that kid any kind of structure. Kids don't need a rigid brick wall. They don't need a jellyfish model. What I believe they need today is a backbone. But if you look at a backbone, it gives you flexibility you can't get from a rigid brick wall. And we need flexibility when we're parenting our children. But it also gives us an environment that is conducive to creative, constructive, and responsible activity from our children. And we need both. We need flexibility and an environment that invites creative, constructive, and responsible activity from our children. So how can I form that backbone for my children? I think one of the first ways we can begin to do that is by giving our kids responsibilities and decision-making skills. And one of the best ways we can give kids responsibilities is with chores. Now, chores have a beginning and an end. And it's also a great way of saying to kids, welcome to the family. You are an important, responsible member of this family, and we're counting on you to help us out. Now, how many of you got paid for doing the supper dishes tonight? You say they aren't done yet, right? Well, why would we pay a kid for doing the supper dishes? Well, because it's real world. Let them hire out to the neighbors for pay. I want my children to understand that we are counting on you to help us out here. When do you start chores? When it's least efficient for a parent, when the kid wants to do it, about 2, when they want to do everything. At 2 at our house, you get to make your own bed. At 3, you get to help unload the dishwasher because you're climbing in it anyway. At 4, you get to help set the table because now you can reach it. And at 5, you get to help use a real vacuum cleaner. And at 6, they realize there's a difference between work and play, but it's too late. They're already hooked into the family routine. And you say, but wait a minute. If I don't pay the kid, he's not going to do it. I refer to that when I'm working with teachers as the scratch and sniff sticker and star syndrome. And some of you school teachers may get a bit nervous here about the 3,500 stickers you just ordered. And you know what you can do with those in school? I recommend you put them on your desk and say to your students, if you think your paper needs or deserves a sticker, give it one. Instead of, oh, good day for you, no sticker for you, good day for you. He says, the heck with the sticker, you know what, you're stuck. The problem with the sticker system at home is you have to keep upping the ante. At school, you have to keep upping the ante. Most 5-year-olds show up in school internally motivated, excited, ready to learn. And unless their parents were school teachers and gave them 5 stars for making their beds and a quarter on Friday for the 5 stars they earned, those little kids do not even know to ask, what are you going to give me if I do it? But by 3rd grade, they're saying, what do we get? 6th grade, do we have to? High school, does it count? And by their senior year, I want a car if I graduate. Car's not internal motivation, it's a bigger sticker with a bigger sticker price. Those of you with older kids, you didn't have to listen, we just got bigger stickers up there. And what frightens me today is we are now seeing at universities an entire generation of scratch and sniff, sticker, and star kids. You sit down with a freshman class today and say, what field would you like to go into? Many of our young, very bright people literally shrug their shoulders and say, whatever makes good money. Because what we have subtly and not so subtly taught them at home and at school is that all good deeds are financially rewarded. Just being in parenting ought to teach you that is not true. All good deeds aren't even recognized, let alone rewarded, let alone financially rewarded. We're also giving them a subtle message that if I don't get a reward for it, maybe it's not worth doing. And there's a lot of things in life worth doing we're never going to see a reward for. And we also give them the message that if I get a reward for it, it's got to be worth doing. Do you know you can pummel somebody's brains out, knock them down, and make more money than you and I will ever see in any other career working 30 years? Does that make that more worth doing than parenting? We're giving kids a subtle message when we constantly bribe them. If I'll give you a quarter if you dump the trash, you're going to be in trouble. 11-year-old says, I got enough money to go to movies. One parent asked her kid to go get something for her, and he says, it's going to cost you a quarter. She said, oh, 2 can play this game, dinner 7 1/4. And the kid said, what was it you wanted? You know, he said, well, how am I going to get him to dump the trash if I don't pay him for it? Let me show you a typical scene in many homes. Kid sitting in a chair watching TV. Parent yells 3 rooms away, Susie, dump the trash. No response. Then we raise our voice, but not to the danger zone. Every kid knows every parent and teacher's danger zone and responds accordingly. You know, it's like the little kindergarten kid. The teacher said, how come I had to tell you to do that 5 times? The kid looked up and said, well, when my mother means it, she says it 5 times. Think about it. Susanna! Now we get more formal. You can throw in a confirmation name if you'd like. Dump the trash. Still no response. Finally, we're bordering on a coronary. We rip on in there. Susanna, you irresponsible kid, get your eyes off that TV right now. You get out there and dump the trash. And by the way, young lady, you did not put your clothes away. And I told you, if you didn't put them away, the next load was not going to get washed. And how many times do I have to tell you to put the lid on a peanut butter jar in the kitchen? I don't know what I'm going to do with you. And the kid looks up and goes, huh, what? You know, they have selective hearing. Meanwhile, you're bordering on a coronary, trash still isn't dumped. You say, how am I going to get her to dump the trash? First of all, you don't yell 3 rooms away. Parenting and teaching are not efficient professions. They take time. And I'm not talking that quality time you read about in the magazines. You know, that's where you say to the kids, we're going to take a day off and go to the city zoo. And the kid says, I don't want to go to the zoo. We are going to the zoo, young man, and you are going to have a good time. I am taking a whole day off of work here, and I'm spending good money, and no, you cannot invite your friends. This is quality time with your parents. Have you ever seen people doing that, trying to have fun, having quality time, and being miserable? And then you go tuck your little one in at night, and he says, Dad, would you stay with me? I don't have time. That's quality time. Sometimes leaving what you're doing to go find the kid is quality time. So you're not screaming at the kid. And you walk up to the kid, and you look down at the kid, get his attention or her attention. You say, Susan, I need you to dump the trash before your next meal. Now what do I need? And the kid kind of looks at you because they're so used to you saying, right now. Because so often we function on, this is my house, and we're going to do it in my way and in my time. We forget this is our home, and we can do it in our way and in our time. And so I say, Susan, I need you to dump the trash before your next meal. And the kid says, I need to dump the trash before my next meal. I say, you got it, kid. Now what I said wasn't nearly as important as what the kid said. I need to dump the trash before my next meal. But I'll bet there are some of you out there that would own that kid's problem all afternoon. Susan, don't forget to dump the trash. Sue, isn't there something you're supposed to be doing before dinner? Susanna, you don't dump that trash, you won't get to eat. And then we ask a dumb question. Trash is sitting right in front of us, and we say, Susan, have you dumped that trash yet? No, let the kid show up for dinner with no place set. You won't have to say a word. Kids have fantastic memories when they need them. How come I don't have a place? Oh, the trash. You see, nagging makes it my problem. Silence keeps it the kids. They say, wait a minute. I thought you weren't into punishment. I didn't say she couldn't eat. She can eat as soon as her chores are done. You say, well, I'm uncomfortable with that. You personally have to have a consequence you can live with. Consequences need to be logical, realistic, and palatable to you. That's why I marvel that any parent would ground a teenager for a month. I say, can you handle it? I don't want the kid home for a month. You know, it's got to be something you can live with. Well, I happen to be able to live with that because I do not bribe my kids with food. Now, some of you grew up like I did. If you don't eat, all the kids in China are going to starve. Some of you grew up like my husband did. If you don't eat, you don't love me. Some of you got both of those injunctions. You don't eat, you don't love me, and all the kids in China are going to starve. And then you do what I did. You finish your plate, your husband's plate, the kid's plate, the cookie jar, and the platter, because if it ain't gone, how could you be full? But we don't need to bribe our children. Think about it. If you eat 5 carrots, 3 carrots, 1, you can have this luscious chocolate cake. That's a bribe. If you behave in the store, I'll give you a cookie. That's a bribe. If you go potty, I'll give you an M&M. We addict kids to M&Ms. And then we tell them they're no good for them. And then we stand outside the bathroom and go, oh, Mommy is so proud of you. Again, do not treat a kid in a way you yourself would not want to be treated. Think about it. We play airplane with the 2-year-old. Boy, have they got us. All they have to do is shut the hanger. But we try to bribe them. I don't bribe my kids with food. In fact, what I really say to them is when the pets are fed and cared for, you may show up for dinner. If any of you ever worked on a farm, you know that's real world for you. And you don't let a cat die to teach a kid a lesson in responsibility. It is not fair to the pet. Now, some of you could not use that as a consequence, though, because you have bribed your kids with food. Some of you can't use that as a consequence because your kids don't show up for dinner, especially if they are an adolescent. Think about it. What I want to show you tonight is that not every consequence will work for all of us. Nor will one consequence work for every kid in your family, nor will it work for the same kid throughout his whole lifetime in your family. Dr. Foster Cline, a clinical